welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Stream Will Act Global Game Jam. With me here, I have Mick Roper and Brian O'Neill from Foundery 45. Why don't you guys go ahead and just introduce yourselves and what you do at Foundery 45 for us?
Okay, I'm Mick Roper. I am the technical director here. That's some combination of HR and project management and kind of all over dev manager type role.
And I'm Brian O'Neill. I'm the lead developer at Foundery 45. Ideally, that means I'm helping enforce coding standards and a vision for our development processes and things like that. And ideally, I do a little coding on the side.
Okay.
He does a great job at all of those things.
Awesome. And also, for the viewers, Foundry 45 is so generously one of our sponsors for this event. And we honestly can't say thank you enough to how integral you guys have been, and also being judges, having your booth set up, and of course the donation that you guys made. So once again, thank you for that as well.
Of course.
I want to start off by talking about what exactly is Foundry 45?
So in general, we are a company focused on virtual reality training. All of our clients are other businesses, so we're a business-to-business company. Everything that we make is in VR, and everything we focused on for probably the last year is in room scale virtual reality, which is like the HTC Vive and the
Sure.
Oculus Rift.
Is that what we're looking at right here on Yoda?
So this is the Oculus Go. That
Okay.
is not room scale.
Okay.
But this Yoda is kind of our little office mascot.
Which somehow lost a finger.
He lost a finger
I don't know.
somehow.
Yeah,
I think it was in
backstory.
transit
Yeah.
or something on
It
a plane.
happens, it
You know,
happens.
the craziest stuff happens on planes.
Okay. So you're saying you work with the HTC Vive, the Oculus Rift, the Go, and yeah, just I didn't mean to interrupt.
And Unity is our main development program. So all of our stuff is through Unity, and then we do training experiences on those different platforms. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So basically, just let's start with Ryan. What's your background? Like, how did you get into VR Foundry 45?
Sure.
What was that like?
It was kind of a random path. So my formal training is in mechanical engineering, but I always loved coding. I took just a single class in college, like an intro to Java class,
Okay.
and I loved it. And so I would always, any project I found that I could have any excuse to program on, I would just spend all my time programming, and I would fail all my other classes, but I was having so much fun programming. And so then I graduated. I worked as a practicing engineer for a couple years or so, and went back to grad school and ended up doing more programming there, but got this opportunity to work for a small mobile gaming company in Orlando. And I started out being more of a producer, but because of my love of programming and trying to find any excuse I could to program, I just kind of forced that role more and more and more until next thing I knew I was just working as a professional programmer, because it was a small company.
Right.
And whatever need you could fit, that's what you started doing. And so then spent several years out in San Francisco working in the mobile space as a programmer before coming here and joining Foundry 45. So it's convoluted, and one thing I like about it is I think specifically with programming, there's so much, it's enough of an art, and there's enough available that you learn the most via practicing it and just continually trying new things and learning.
right. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I mean, I want to touch on that a bit later on about how, a form of expression in art.
Mm-hmm.
But Mick, I'm interested to know, what's your background? I mean, how did you decide that this is what you wanted to do?
It's also convoluted. Similar to Brian, I went to school for aerospace engineering
Wow.
at Georgia Tech. Then went to a startup here in Georgia with some of my fellow founders of the company. And then eventually we shuttered that and opened this company. And when we started, we were doing again, similar to Brian's stuff, a lot of everything, right? Everyone in the there were only 4 of us. We were doing all the pieces. So when it started, I was doing a lot of 360 photography, and our VR stuff was more like mobile apps and stuff like that. And then eventually we broke into doing some of this training stuff, and it's been full speed ever since. So yeah, and I've done some combination of engineering, photography, and coding ever since leaving school.
So is it safe to say that you guys are by nature creators, and you just sort of found the medium of game development, coding, and that's how you channel that?
Maybe. I would say, actually, and I've thought about this, because I used to think I was an entrepreneur, and I'm not. Like,
Okay.
I don't have the visionary skill set, and that is a skill set. But I'm I think, kind of the second half, which is the implementer, which is given a challenge. I'll try and figure out how to make it happen.
And I feel like that mindset is pretty important for coding, because kind of the whole concept is, hey, here's a challenge, go ahead and work it out.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So while I am asking the questions, you guys feel free, those of you watching, to ask your own questions, and we'll be able to get them answered for you. We're going to get back to the art and the expression, because that's something that we had Ron Williams here earlier, John Weinberger, and we talked a little bit about that, so I want to get your take on it before we get into that. What is, we know your background, but what really inspires you, especially with VR and AR? It's sort of very niche, it's very, it's not necessarily new, but it has, in the last few years really taken the market by storm. So what's really your inspiration for that, for the work that you do in VR?
I feel like that's more of a per project basis. We work with a lot of different companies, and they all come to us with different challenges, but they don't really know what works in VR and what doesn't. So we bring our expertise to bear on a per project basis and say, hey, and sometimes it's this is the best way to solve things, and I think really that's a mindset that's behind our whole company. And sometimes it's, hey, we've got this really cool idea that accomplishes your goals, but also furthers our internal skill sets and what we can do as a company, and making it better and better. So really it's, I guess, constant innovation, would be the inspiration out of that. I really like embracing some of these new technologies, embracing new ways to do things in VR, embracing new ways to teach in VR. It's all about the innovative piece here. That's the inspiring to me, at least. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, it's crafting, and that I don't think is unique to VR. I think it kind of loops back to my sentiment on programming in general, but just crafting experiences and crafting logic in a way. So that's what I love about programming, and also applies to VR programming.
Okay, so I have to ask you, we're here at Global Game Jam. We're on day 2, and I've seen you guys sort of making your rounds, looking at all the different participants, how they're coming along. Have you seen, you don't have to specify which ones, have you seen anything that sort of reminded you of, you see yourself in that project, or in these, we have some high school people here, what's it like being on the other side of the industry now, and being able to see, people so young coming in and doing that? How has that been?
It's been really neat to see people take a game mechanic and just start fleshing it out and kind of failing, or no one has directly said, we tried it and just didn't work, and I'm sure that has happened, but also just reading between the lines and like the subtle nods, like, oh, it's going, and not saying that it's necessarily working 100% how they plan for it to work, but just the understanding that, yeah, we've all been there, and like the great idea that you had 10 hours ago or 12 hours ago morphs over time, and I think that's cool to see, because that's a very powerful and useful learning experience.
Yeah, one of the things that I think it was Ron Williams who was here earlier was saying it's really about failing forward. A question that we actually have from, I think that's Fixbane, if I say that correctly, is do you guys consider VR training as a game field, if I'm understanding that question correctly?
Gamified?
Yeah, I think that's gamified.
Gamified, sorry.
Yeah.
Right.
I would say no. I don't know. What's your take?
In general, training has gotten somewhat gamified. If you look at the learning management systems out there, there's a list of things you have to complete, and then as you keep going down the list, you're like, oh, I'm getting further. There's also companies out there that do non-VR training that add games into the training and use those games in order to teach. A lot of the stuff we do is there's very specific tasks you need to learn how to do, and then do them. In some sense, it's been gamified in that there is an end goal. Say if you are on a factory line, the line is never going to finish, right? There's always going to be new products coming in, and in our versions of those, there is usually a finish. It's like, oh, okay, deal with 10 bad items, and then once you've finished the 10 bad items. So in that sense, it's somewhat gamified. And, I think some of that does help with the learning process. As you're going through, you're getting introduced to new concepts through the game that can help you retain the information.
Right. So, yeah, and I guess maybe I misinterpreted the question a little bit, because when I heard gamified, I was thinking entertainment is the primary focus, which I would say it's more entertaining to be in VR than reading a training manual or watching a PowerPoint presentation. Right. But the transfer of knowledge, like actually the training aspect of the training, is still the most important. It's not the entertainment aspect.
I think it's a part of also the novelty of it, right? I mean, you have, especially in the commercials and everything, it's such a new technology for most people that they don't encounter on the day-to-day, that just interacting with it is just fun, inherently fun. Right. So whether you're like flipping through a textbook or the dictionary, because it's in VR, it's automatically fun.
Right.
And actually that brings me to an interesting question. Over the time, is it still fun? I mean, is interacting in VR still fun for you guys?
I would say no for our own experiences, just because we have to deal with all the bugs. And whenever you look at anything you've created, all you can see is what's wrong with it.
Right.
But for some of the, we'll still play some of the new VR games. I think the one you were wanting to play
I still play the archery in the lab.
Oh, yeah.
I still go through and, periodically we'll pick that up and play that just because I think that's a really fun experience.
I have a PlayStation VR at home, and I've been playing Astrobot, which is really fun. It's like a platformer, and
I have this, maybe I'm just paranoid, but I have this fear that if I put it on, someone's going to, attack me, or I'm going to break something. Have you ever, fallen over or tripped or hurt someone while you were in VR?
I have scared my fiance, who was in VR, playing the Steam VR lab thing. There's a mountain experience where you get to climb a mountain, and you're warping around the mountain, and so she's on the edge looking down this mountain. Wow, this is so great! And I came up behind her and just tap, and
you couldn't
her
resist.
her legs gave out. I caught her.
Right.
Everything's good. But it was a very bad thing, and yes, people will probably do that to you depending on who you're around.
Okay, so it's an occupational hazard then, right? With the VR, but I want to tie this back around into Global Game Jam, because the original question was about seeing such young jammers and programmers. Has there been any specific? Not, you don't have to say which project it is. I think for the sake of the competition and everything, we shouldn't. But have you seen something that's really caught your eye? And you're like, that's neat. That's really cool. Has been anything like that you guys have seen?
I think I've seen something like that from everyone we've looked at so far.
I mean, honestly, I've seen a lot. Yeah. That's cool. And
everyone is so creative here, and it's crazy to me that they've come up with something so great in less than 24 hours at this point, and I'm excited to see where those concepts go in the next 24. And
well, yeah, it's interesting. Like, I think that creativity kind of differs between the teams too. Some have a really interesting concept. Some have really, or game mechanics. Some have an interesting art style. Some from the technical implications, I think, are really interesting. So yeah, there's a lot of creativity, and it's not all just in one specific avenue. It's not just game design creativity or art creativity. It varies all around.
Okay. Well, speaking about creativity, we are in the CMII, right? The Creative Media Industries Institute. And how long have you guys been in the CMII?
We've been here since November 2017, I believe, was our official move-in month. So we were actually here before it was publicly opened, renting an office space.
And what's that experience been like? I mean, how is it different than other places, or what's been like the highlight of being here?
The interaction with students on a daily basis is really cool. It definitely feels way more vibrant than just traditional office space. I can't imagine actually being in some building a few blocks from here where maybe you're on the 14th floor or something, but you're just stuck in like a cubicle field.
I really like this. This place has allowed us to expand and contract, like there's so much available sort of working space. It's a co-working space with students and our employees, and I think a lot of good's come out of all of that. We've gotten I think 4 interns, maybe 5 or 6 from GSU.
Wow.
And a couple hires,
couple full-time hires. Everyone's been great. I love that we're in this space with all of these people who are coming up and trying to get into either development or game development, whatever.
Yeah. Okay. That's and I think part of that is also when people are around you trying to learn, it just sets the tone for the environment and the atmosphere. I know that with PantherHackers, at least, that's been like our primary goal, is really creating that environment where it's okay to make a mistake, it's okay to ask a question. And I think that as from a student perspective, I think it's been beneficial to have you guys here, right? To have sort of the industry experts that we can say look up to and model, and I think that's also been very beneficial. I've actually prepared a video that you guys have released on your channels, and I wanted to sort of just show it for the stream, and we can talk about what it is. There's no audio or anything. We're gonna cue to that now. So, what exactly are we looking at here?
Do you want to? Okay.
Yeah, I can. Yeah. So this is a demo we set up where we're training you to replace the rubber pieces in an industrial pump. So this is actually a type of air-operated double diaphragm pump.
Okay, it's a real pump.
It's
like
a real pump.
That actually exists.
Right.
Yeah. And this is actually a process that people have to go through and do. Basically, as the life of the pump goes on, these rubber pieces get worn down, and then it's the first thing to wear down, so it's what you have to replace.
It was kind of just meant as a basic proof of concept demonstration piece for what just like the tip of the iceberg for VR training looks like. Just demonstrating that, hey, if you have a real piece of equipment and you have an actual procedure that's lined up, that's specified in a manual somewhere, we can recreate it in VR and allow you to go through and do it. And then also have a little fun in the process. I don't know if it's in the video anywhere, but...
it's not even in this build of it.
So
at some point we made a exploding barrel that you can throw the balls at, and then the barrel will explode. I think
fun.
This one was like the very first build that we did.
So just to get a better understanding, because this is all I have no idea what this is. So just to get a better understanding of what kind of, how many hours. I mean, is this like from beginning to end? You guys developed it, the textures, the physics, the everything. I mean, can you talk a little bit about what went into making something like this?
Yeah, so this was roughly a couple weeks worth of work. The pump model we did a lot of cleanup in-house on. Some of the other environmental assets, I think, honestly, are just from the asset store.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the environment's the asset store.
Yeah. We weren't trying to spend a lot of time in-house recreating a specific scene or factory floor or anything. I think we just pulled a garage shop asset from the asset store. And yeah, then really where we spent more time doing custom work was just the specifics of the procedure itself. You'll see it at one point, though it's not explicitly called out. You have to tighten the bolts back onto the pump in a star-shaped pattern, and that's just part of the procedure. And so sometimes, it's okay to remove the bolts in any manner. Sometimes procedure calls for like specific ways of doing things. So that's where we spent more time actually in the development, is making sure our implementation actually taught you something.
And would you guys say that this is becoming the standard for the industry going forward? I mean, not specifically the pump industry, but just sort of training, manual stuff, machine stuff. Is that the norm going forward?
I don't know that it's reached the point of it being the norm, but a lot of large companies are embracing it. I think Walmart is one of the biggest ones. They bought something like 15,000 of these headsets to do
the Oculus Go.
Yeah, the Oculus Go to do training for their. I think it was for their workers.
Yeah, I'm still not sure if it's like warehouse specifically or retail and store, but they bought a lot and are moving heavily there. And we can't talk about who the clients are, but we have some major clients who are getting on board in a significant way with some VR training.
Yeah, it's definitely an exciting industry to be in right now, I think.
Okay, so then I know that you guys are very busy and you have to keep going around, and judging is coming up, and it's a big part of the process. So I guess one of the last questions I really have for you guys is, what advice, and Mick, we'll start with you, and then Brian, what advice do you have for not only jammers here at Global Game Jam, but aspiring VR enthusiasts, CS students, whatever the example, what advice do you have for them?
Don't crunch, please. Get as much sleep as you can. Your brain always works better on more sleep. And I know college, when you're in college, you don't listen to anything like that. I know I didn't sleep very much in college. But the more sleep you have, the better you can think about how to solve hard problems. So, yeah, that's really my...
Yeah, and I guess my advice would be learn how to teach yourself. And I don't know if it's ultimately the best advice, because I feel like my career path was a little meandering, but also I feel like just not being afraid to go off and try something new, and your degree doesn't dictate what you can do ultimately if you get used to just going out and finding whatever information you need to know. That would be my advice.
Yeah,
Awesome.
That's good.
Well, once again, both of you, thank you so much for giving us your time here and helping out everyone who's watching and who will watch. And I'm very excited to see how this game jam is going to turn out. Once again, thank you for helping make it all possible.
Of course.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing everything.
Yeah.
What is it, about 24 hours from now?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
You said that, my heart started beating. Like, it's crazy. So once again, thank you guys very much, and to everyone who's been watching on the stream, we will be live again shortly with our next series of programming. So make sure to follow the stream. Check out Foundery 45 at foundry45.com.
Correct.
Right, the leaders in VR AR business. Right, that's it.
That is correct.
Yeah.
All right, so.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much.
No problem at all.